Alright, so this is part 3 of methodizing the monster game. Okay, and we had built all these methods and we had started to call them. Alright, so here's our program where we were at. So far in our loop, we were displaying the menu and getting their choice. Alright, so after we get their choice, we have to sort of do the if part. Alright, so basically if they choose to fight, we're going to subtract some health, random amount of health, and then display it. And if they chose to run, we're going to display a method mocking them, right? So I'm going to go back to the original code actually, okay, and look. So we are kind of at the point where we already did this with a method, right? We just did this with a single method call. We got this with another method, and then we do our if they choose to fight, right? So, and then else if they choose to run. Okay, so basically we're going to do the same thing in our code. So we're going to do if they chose to fight. So get their choice, and if get their choice, if choice equals fight, I'm having a hard time saying that word, right? Then we are going to get the damage. So I was kind of looking at these lines of code a little bit, and basically we have a method that does these lines, right? Gets the monster's damage, right? And we can just do that by using our method, our get random damage method. That'll return an int. Okay, so right here we can set our monster damage to be whatever is returned by the method and then subtract it off of here. Okay, so we still have a monster damage variable. So I'm going to set that monster damage to be call my method. So I'm going to use the name, which is get random damage. I'm just going to copy the name actually. So I'm going to do get random damage, and then this would represent the max amount of damage we want the monster to be able to do. And so for now, I'll just pass in 25. Okay, and then we do need to then change our player health variable. Okay, so our monster damage, we set it to be whatever is returned by the method, and then we subtract that from player health. So we're going to do the line player health equals whatever the player's health was minus this monster damage. Okay, and this will do it anytime we have chosen to fight. Okay, and then we can call the method a second time, right? We don't need a new method. We can just keep using to get random damage anytime we need to do damage or get a random amount. And again, if we look at this code, we're essentially these lines, we don't have to duplicate them, right? Because we have a method, right? We don't have to keep duplicating this code. We can just call the method anytime we need this kind of code, right? So again, that's the power of a method, is it cuts down on the coding, right? And if we had to make changes, we wouldn't have to change it in 2 spots. We could just change it in 1 spot in our method. Okay, so basically now I can do the player's damage is going to be equal to get random damage. And we'll have the player continue to do 25 damage, same as the monster. Again, you can modify that based on what you want, right? But now we just need to update the monster's health. Okay, and again, we have access to this variable because it's part of the main method, and we're in a sub parenthesis. So monster's health is going to be whatever it was before minus the player's damage. Okay, and again, that's crucial because that'll to potentially make the while loop exit if we get below 0. Okay, so we've chosen to fight, we've did the damage, and then if we look back, the next lines of code, we just display their health. Okay, and so again, instead of having a couple lines here, we can just call our method, right? That was our last method, no, second to last method of display health, and just pass in those 2 variables. Okay, so basically this method down here doesn't know about player health and monster health. They exist only inside of our main method because we declared them here. So we have to pass them in to our display health method. Okay, so I'm going to copy this. It's a void method, so we're not returning anything to main. So I'm going to go back here and just call the method with nothing being returned and just what health. Right, and I do need to get the order right. I think I set it up as player health first and monster health second. So we're going to pass in player health and monster health, like so. And please note that these are actually different variables, even though they're both called player health and monster health. The player health and monster health are these two that have scope inside of main, right? That's what's being passed in. And then even though I called them the same thing here, these are actually different variables. And you're not passing the variable so much as you're passing the value. So certainly I could have named these like player health and monster health just to show you that they are truly two different variables. Okay, and so again, player health, pH and MH here are just taking on the values being passed in. So I'm not actually passing in right here. I'm not actually passing in the player health and monster health variable, just their values are being passed to that method. Okay, so I can name them different variables. All right, hopefully that makes sense. So let's go back and see. I think that was it for the loop. Is it just displays the health and then keeps going? Oh, and we also have to do if they chose run, say no princess for you. So let's see, if I go back, my if is there, and then I'll add the else if they chose to run, say no princess for you. Okay, and again, just to show you the point of methods, the whole reason I'm doing this is I think it's a good example of methods. And so here, hopefully this is easier to see what's going on. It's not perfectly beautiful, to be honest, but basically we can see while they choose fight and player has health and monster has health, we display the menu, get their choice, then we do an if else based on their choice, right? And then basically if they chose to fight, we get some damage subtracted from their health, do the same for the monster, and then display their health values. So it's a little bit more readable when we've broken it into methods than when we looked at all of this. That was a little less readable. Okay, which is another purpose of methods. Okay, so the final thing I think we need is after the while loop ends, either it's no longer fight or one of them no longer has health. So that's where we display that ending message. Okay, so we wrote a separate method down here that will display the end message, okay, based on the players and monsters' health. So I'm just going to call this method. It's a void method, so I don't need to return anything to main, but I call it and pass in the two health values. Okay, so I can go back up here into my main, right? And I should have access to player health and monster health because they're not inside the while, they're outside. So I'm going to go to the end of my while here. So when the while ends, and then I'm just going to call display end message and pass in the player's health and the monster's health. And again, to preach the importance of methods here, if later on we wanted to have more than just two ending messages, right? All I need to do is just go down to the method and just change that piece, right? I could just change this piece to have different messages based on what happens. I might have to pass in more variables and stuff, but I could change in just a single piece in one spot, and I wouldn't need to search all over main, right? I would just know, hey, the ending message gets displayed by this method, go down there and change it. Okay, so I want to see if it's still working, right? Now that I've put all the pieces together in main. So I'll run it here quick. And of course, I'm going to fight. Make this a little bigger. Okay, so I walloped him that time. He did no damage to me, and I pummeled him. I'm feeling good. Now I'm gonna keep fighting. Fight. Oh, and then I got walloped at the end there. Yikes. So I died. Maybe run it one more time. I'm gonna fight a little bit. Now I'm gonna get scared and run away. And ran away, no princess for you. So it seems to be working okay, right? And the point of this again is to show you, as you start to program, don't do this, right? We had originally had monster game in one giant main, which is not good, right? This one's not even that long, but as you build more complex programs, you want it broken down into pieces. It's a lot easier to modify. It's a lot you only have to change it in one spot. You can reuse it whenever you want, right? So the way we've got this set up now, anytime we need our menu, we can just call display menu, right? Anytime we need damage, we can just call our damage method. Okay, so doing it in this way has many advantages. And in going forward, I think writing your code in little methods is really the right way to do it. And even though that's hard, it's much harder because you got to pass in variables and keep track of them. Long term, this is going to be the way you're going to see code written and in the way you're going to want to do it. So even though it's challenging, thank you for hanging in there, and I think this is a really valuable skill to learn. All right, thank you for watching.